Good afternoon. Welcome to United Opposition with Scott and Marshall. We're talking free speech. Here we go. Well, welcome back to United Opposition. Marshall, how you doing today? You doing okay?
I'm under the weather, Scott.
Under the weather just a little bit. Okay, but I appreciate you joining us and being here and so we can continue to have our conversations with everybody. Today we're talking about free speech. Before we get into it, I just want to thank our sponsor, Covenant Coffee, Hope in a Cup. Oh, see, with this new camera angle, you can actually see the coffee cup. You can actually see that in there and we can be like, Hope in a Cup. That's right. Hope in a Cup, Covenant Coffee. There's a couple locations here in Bakersfield. When you're purchasing from Covenant Coffee, you are supporting not only a coffee shop, but really you're supporting a ministry that helps emancipated foster youth, those who've aged out of the foster system, and a lot of times they can fall through the cracks in society and not know where to go next. And Covenant Coffee comes in and gives them a job, gives them placements, finds them homes, and brings mentorship into their life. And so really, really great ministry. If you buy coffee from them, this is their mild brew. This is their, so I'm going to have a little bit of her Covenant Coffee, Hope in a Cup, ASMR. But anyway, hey, we're talking free speech with a question mark, because how free is it? How free should it be? I think maybe Marshall and I might even have a couple of different opinions on this. And I'm not even quite sure. It's such a complex topic. It's such a complex thing. I find myself going hard line one way, and then all of a sudden I'm like, but then no, because if we go too far that way, so what prompted this is that image that's been going around of the eagle bowing its head and says pray, and Facebook has been blocking that, saying a violent image. Click here if you want to see it, type thing, and it's I don't know. What do you think about it, Marshall? Is it just an eagle praying, or is it violent? I mean, what do you see on it?
Well, I was actually shocked that it was blocked. I'm like, why this of all things? You know, there's something that triggered the algorithm, I suppose, the almighty algorithm.
You're like, why was this blocked? And all I responded with, welcome to being a conservative on Facebook.
Oh, well, I don't know about that, but
it feels like it. It feels like it.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. I just think that, we just a week ago, we had this long conversation about AI and how the computers are going to take over and do everything. And then this happens, and it's clearly an AI algorithm that flagged this and blocked it. And at no point has anybody gone in there and saying, wait a minute, this is a mistake. Let's switch that off.
Or how do you know it was an AI? What if it was a person?
Probably because the amount of content that goes into Facebook, it has to be AI moderated. It just can't. Just like YouTube, there's just not enough people and hours in the day.
We were talking here in the studio. We get ready to about this discussion, and our IT professional that's here, Nathaniel. I don't know. Is he still here, Mike? Is Nathaniel still here? I don't know if he's still here or not, but we were talking about this, and he has a whole insight on all this. He was telling us about how that it is, and Nathaniel, if you're hearing this, join us in the comments and let us know what you were saying. But he was talking to us about how it is an algorithm. It's driven by an AI algorithm, but certain things, especially on YouTube, specifically that when it gets to the what did he call it? It was the trending. What's trending? The trending page is absolutely moderated by a human. Like as things come onto trending, a human being. But other ones are AI flags it, and then a human looks at it and decides a lot of times. So I think there was still a human being involved in looking at this and saying no.
I don't know. Again, even then, you have such a volume of content. If you're on YouTube and you're dealing with the trending, well, you're dealing with one web page. And even if it's a big web page, it's not thousands and thousands, maybe thousands in a day, but it's not hundreds of thousands or certainly not millions, which is what they're probably being hit with, And
I think it's something like it's something crazy, like hundreds of hours of content is uploaded to YouTube every second.
Yeah,
it's like some kind of crazy. Can you imagine the server farms that have to
Right.
host all this?
Right. And the server farms that are out there that are posting disinformation, that are flooding these websites with bad content, low quality content.
Hmm.
You know,
So what is misinformation?
well, that's a good question, one that I hadn't really thought you were going to pitch at me. But if I were to just answer off the cuff here, I would say that it's information that is either false or misleading. So,
That I would agree with that. We actually, when we were again getting ready to talk about this here, Michael asked Siri, "What's the Webster's definition of misinformation?" It's literally that. It's information that is false or intentionally incorrect or misleading information. Indubitably, a great deal of that's a thing, but the incorrect or misleading information. And I think part of it was saying there's an intent to misinform, an intent to do that. And so, I mean, because here we are, we're here in 2024, and I was talking to Nathaniel and asking about the tech person that's here, asking him about what are all these things? Like, well, no, you can say what you want. You just have to bleep out some things, or you just change some of the words. You can say what you want. Just make sure you're avoiding these words. Then you're not saying what you want. No, it's free speech. You just have to bleep out these things. Then it's not free speech. I mean, it's like,
right. Well, certain words have legal definitions attached to them, and the legal definition may be a little bit different from what we talk about. Let's say, for example, you're talking about holistic health and herbal remedies.
Yep.
You can't use the word cure, for example, or you can't use the word medicine per se, because there's a legal ramification behind that claim or that term.
Gotcha.
You may get well while using the herbal remedy, but that doesn't mean that you can use that when marketing it, because somebody out there is going to say, hey, if I take this product, if I brew this tea and drink it, it's going to cure my ailment. And then when it doesn't, then they may file a case or something, and then here you go. So there are certain words that you have to use. And in fact, there are even cheat sheets out there for marketing where instead of this, say this, because there have been cases that have established that this is no, this is okay.
So I'm curious, as we get deeper into this discussion, as we're talking about it, I guess it ultimately comes down to, when your video, if it says certain things or things on there, or Facebook or YouTube or some of these social media sites, if they choose to either demonetize your video, or if they choose to what they call shadow blocking it, which is basically they just don't put it on the algorithm to put it out there to people. You make the content, put it out there. If somebody happens to find it, or if somebody's looking for it and searching for it, they might find it, but it's not going to be pushed out to anybody's algorithm. It's not going to be pushed out to anybody's page. So effectively, you're not being seen at all. Or if they outright ban it or remove the video or anything like that, is that a free speech issue?
I think it's a form of enforcement. And what we have to understand is that with rights, with privileges, there also comes responsibilities. Just like, if you have a firearm, you have a responsibility to manage and wield the firearm safely and appropriately, not to
right. But that is a finite
with it.
But that is a clear finite, definable. If you don't handle a firearm correctly, there is evidence of it. Objectifiable evidence that somebody got shot. The gun went off. There's a clear measure of what was mishandling.
Correct. There are bright lines. Right. Whereas in speech, it gets to be a lot more gray. But I still think the same principle applies and must apply. And I think that as a media corporation, something like X or YouTube or Facebook, whatever it may be, if you allow certain kinds of content to propagate on your platform, you have very little control over what people post. But if you allow what they post, if they post something that's harmful or dangerous or whatever, the same thing as fire in a crowded theater kind of a thing, and that begins to propagate, and you don't put the stop on that, then I think you then become responsible and liable for that.
But then who gets to decide what is the speech that you're supposed to block?
Well, and again, that's the hard part, right? Because I think most of us would agree that outright lies should not be published. In fact, if you publish lies, there's potential liability. There's slander and there's libel, right? You can be sued for either one of those. But what if
But hold
somebody
on.
posts a
I
fallacy?
like that. I like that. Let's talk
Okay.
about that one, the lie, real quick, because you brought that up.
Mm-hmm.
So, isn't it better to publish the lie than let that person be taken down legally than to look and say, well, I think it's a lie, so I'm not going to let it be published at all? What's
No,
the better way to
because
handle that?
because I think the lie or the misinformation can spread and propagate and do harm. You're dealing with a situation where the harm is active and taking place.
Yes, but now that's
It's being
actionable.
exacerbated.
Yeah, but now it's actionable. Now the person being harmed has a bigger case of being harmed and can go back at that person. I think consequences for what you say, I think, are a more powerful deterrent than simply being silenced.
No, if I see that somebody is being harmed or may potentially be harmed, it's just like when I'm driving, right? I will see somebody merge into my lane and do something ridiculous, right? It's going to cause an accident. They're going to be at fault, and I'm going to be able to sue them for a lot of money, and I'm going to get a brand new car. Do I get out of the way, or do I let them hit me? And the answer is I get out of the way. Because even though, yes, I'm going to get a sweet payday and all that, it's simply not worth the harm and the potential harm. I mean, I could die. They could die. Someone could be injured. We're going to block traffic for miles. I mean, there's all kinds of chaos that gets created when somebody does something irresponsible like that. So it is better for me to say, even though I'm in the right, I'm going to yield my right of way so that there's no accident that takes place and nip that in the bud rather than be stubborn and say, you know what? No, I want my payday. No.
Yeah, but I'm looking at it from the perspective of when you're the person, that when we allow that to happen, when we as a society say that's acceptable, that somebody in charge of the window that everybody gets to look at,
Oh,
bless you.
thank you.
When we say that it's okay that person can determine for us whether or not we should be able to see that person now gets to define truth to society. That seems like a very scary position that for society to be okay with, for society to be able to say, we think this person gets to define what truth is for us. Does that not sound scary?
It does, but you remember, again, just like you said, there's also a process that works the other way, right? And we also have to keep in mind that a lot of these things like X and Facebook and YouTube are also private entities. We do not have a right to use and access and post whatever we want to them. They have established terms and conditions, guidelines for what's allowed. And if we violate those, then they're allowed to say no. And I'm pretty sure they have a blanket stipulation in there that says anything we choose, we can take it down for no reason.
Okay. So they're allowed to take down black
whatever they
content
choose.
creators because they're black.
Yeah, theoretically, they could probably do that. Now,
Legally?
No, not legally.
So then,
But
no, they can't.
Under their terms of conditions, they would claim that. Because
Right,
I'm
but those
pretty
terms
sure-
and conditions would be illegal and needs to be fought.
Right, and when something is illegal, it's an unenforceable, invalid contract. So, and again, people could make that claim, but in general, those things aside, those glaring examples aside, I'm pretty sure that if you post a picture of, let's say, a dog, and they say, we don't want dog pictures today for whatever reason, they can take it down, and you really have no recourse.
Mm-hmm.
So.
But at what point is it violating your free speech? If you're saying something,
it's not. It never, because you can go outside of your house, you can go to the public park or the public sphere, and you can still exercise your speech.
Right,
Remember,
but
the First
again,
Amendment applies to the government. It does not apply to private entities.
No, but there are things that do, because they can't say, you know what, well, you're a black person, you can go outside and talk anywhere you want, you just can't talk on our platform. That would be enforceable by the law that they cannot do that. So
Correct.
That means what you're saying, what you were saying is not actually factual. That they cannot just say, sorry, we're not. There are rules that they have to apply, and the First Amendment does apply to them.
No, it does not. You do not have a First Amendment right on social media. Period. End of sentence. Now,
No, I'm saying the
if social
companies.
media engages
The,
in discrimination, then yes, the individual is protected by the Constitution and can sue the social media firm. But no, you do not have an absolute right to free speech on
and
social
that
media.
no, that's not what I was. That's not what I was saying. I'm saying
In fact, you
is
don't
social
even have a
media.
right to use social media.
No, you don't. You don't. I agree with that. But does social media have an obligation to not discriminate?
Yes, I would agree with that.
Because you were saying they could discriminate all they want. I'm like, no, they can't.
Right, you're correct. You're correct. So
Yeah.
I take a half step back there, but
So
otherwise,
at what point? What point is do conservatives say we're being discriminated against because our voices are being silenced on these platforms?
well, I think at
Because
what point,
is
if they're
political
posting,
speech is
if
political
they're posting
speech,
facts, factual information,
and a
and
lot of
it's
times they are.
censored, then I think they have an argument.
Is that actionable? Do you think it should be actionable?
What do you mean by that?
Like, can conservatives then say, let's sue this company for discriminating against us?
And they should. If you're blocking facts, news, and information that does not otherwise violate the terms of service, and you're discriminating against it because you simply disagree with the point of view, yet the point of view is based on facts and evidence. Let's say I post, data that, comes out from an official source, like the government itself. I post a jobs report and
Mm-hmm.
say, here's the data. And you say, well, I don't like the way the jobs report went. That goes against the candidate that I prefer. So we're going to delete that post. Well, yeah, I think that's a clear form of political and inappropriate censorship. And yeah, if the company is going to do that and they're going to play pick and choose, then yeah, I think that conservatives should have some ground to sue or do something. They should have some kind of recourse, you know.
The argument that the conservatives are having is that that's been happening all the time.
Well,
That happens
It
all the
depends on
time.
what it is, because here's the other thing that I just was able to throw out there earlier: are logical fallacies misinformation, and should they be allowed to take down
Ooh.
something that is a logical fallacy? And the problem is the vast majority of the statements we make, probably 90% of the things that you and I have both said on this show, could
As careful as
theoretically
we
be
are. As
could be
careful as we are.
classified into one kind of a logical fallacy or another. And so let's say that someday in the future they have an AI that can spot logical fallacies and take it down. I tell you, social media will become a ghost town.
Nobody would be able to say anything because human
Right.
beings operate on logical fallacies.
Right. But but most of your political speech is in the realm of logical fallacy all the time.
So what do you think about what's happening specifically like in France and Europe, where they're actually arresting CEOs of social media companies because they will not censor the content of the people? They will not step in and say, I'm not going to censor that. I'm going to let it flow through and let it be, let it be shown for whatever falseness it is, and let people counter it themselves, but I'm not going to censor it. Do you think that corporations, social media corporations, should be held liable for what they do not censor?
It depends on what they're not censoring. If there's illegal activity, things like that, then yeah, they need to be held liable for
But
that.
illegal where? It might be illegal. You cannot say this against Muhammad in this country,
Correct.
so it's illegal there. So is a social media company in the United States liable and responsible to that? So that the government would say, sorry, that's illegal for those people, so you cannot say that. Is
Right.
that acceptable?
I would imagine that it is possible to create filters that are based on a nation that respects each nation's laws. We might not like that, especially coming here from the United States, where we can say whatever we want about Muhammad the Prophet if we choose, but in another country, if we it would be censored. And I think that technology is such that it allows us to make these filters apply by region or by nation or even by zip code. I mean, they can target an advertisement to you by zip code.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think that's just how we have to do things, because, each nation has the right to self-determination, and if the people of a nation say this is where we draw the line and you want to do business in there, well, when in Rome you have to do as the Romans do. That's the rule. And if you refuse to
And
do that, then yes, you're going to be caught up in their legal system.
And you think all nations should be respected?
Yes.
The nations that say women can't get driver's license, that law should be respected?
Yes. Unfortunately, I disagree with the law, and I feel that the oppression is unjust and inappropriate.
But we
However,
still
the
need to
fact
respect
is,
it.
well, as an American, it's not for me to go around and make the world America, because that's a whole different can of worms. I can advocate and support, and I can even give material support to movements that bring about reform in these countries that I agree with. But at the end of the day, it is not my place to go to those countries and try to overthrow the government or do something myself.
I'm so surprised, because that seems to be the playbook of the leftist ideology, is make sure everybody plays by the same rules.
Right. If you are a Trotskyite and you believe that the socialist revolution must be exported, then yes, absolutely. And I get it. Personally, I don't think it has to be exported by force, though.
Right, but isn't that the philosophy of socialism? Isn't that the philosophy of socialism and communism? You're not done until everybody's equal.
Right, but there's a fine line between hard and stupid, right? You can certainly advocate and work towards a goal, but
Both
if you
hard and stupid.
Yeah, well, but if you're dumb about it, you're just going to suffer a setback. So, yeah, when it comes to censorship, nations have the right to set rules about what kind of speech is allowed and what is not allowed. And if you are a tech firm, a social media firm, you need to set up the appropriate filters to respect those laws. If you flout those laws, then expect that if you decide to be foolish enough to fly to that country, they're going to arrest you. I'm sorry. Hard and stupid,
Right, but should it be that way? Come on, Marshall. Should it be that way? Should it be okay for a country to say you're not censoring the way we want you to censor? Therefore, we're going to arrest
nations
you.
And people have the right to self-determination. So even from a moral perspective, I believe that if that is how the people of the nation choose to be, then that's one thing. If, on the other hand, there is a dictator who is imposing this from the top down, that is not how the people wish to be, and then I would oppose that. I would have an issue with that. But if the people, by and large, say this is how we wish to live and how we wish to be, that's how it's going to be. Because otherwise we get into this area where I'm imposing my morals and my worldview on other people who don't share it against their will. And I think that's a bad thing to do.
I'm really surprised to hear that coming from a person who's a leftist, because that's not.
I understand.
That's not what the left wants to do.
Well,
are you actually a leftist now? I mean, come on.
Right.
Because it's like, this is what the left does. This is what communism does. This is what socialism does. And you're saying right now, no, those things are wrong. I'm like, then are you still a leftist?
Right. No, I think that's a valid question. There are different kinds of leftists, just like there are different kinds of conservatives and so on. Am I the kind of person who is going to say we need to violently export the revolution to all nations in the world? I get that, yes, it's going to have to happen, or it will happen, but I also think it will happen organically. And I don't need to be the guy who's actually dropping off the guns, at the airport.
But you agree somebody should be.
No,
you just don't want it to. You just don't. No, you were just saying you don't want it to be you.
I think if you educate people, and you organize them, then that will follow. That's the natural way things are going to play out.
What will follow? People will get guns and have a revolution?
Yeah, absolutely. Eventually they will. They'll have to. They will.
So you agree. So you are saying it's okay that somebody's eventually going to do that. You just don't want it to be you. It's okay that somebody eventually is going to revolutionize.
What I'm saying is there's a time and a place for that. And it's not this instant. No. And I'd like to keep this grounded on the topic rather
Yeah.
than,
So they were,
exporting
yeah,
the
exactly.
revolution. Viva la revolucion,
Yeah, but going back to the topic, for me, what bothers me is how, like, censorship used to be something we were all against. It feels like censorship used to be a thing that Americans were against. Like, it was, I remember growing up and being like, looking back at any time there was censorship, it was looked in a negative way. And now it feels like most people see censorship as a reasonable, rational way to make sure everybody's nice or something. Like, literally right now, it's like, you cannot offend people. That's offensive. And I'm like, no, I don't care. No, it's not what I said isn't offensive. It's you were offended by it. That's different. It's
Yeah,
there's a
prior to
difference
the
between
internet, you had news channels, and you had newspapers, you had publishers, and you had magazines and stuff. You had gatekeepers of information, if you will.
Mhm.
And these gatekeepers acknowledged, at least up until the mid 80s, that they had a responsibility to fact check and provide actual truthful information. Now, there were some shocking examples or exceptions to that. For example, the CIA putting people into newspapers, and things like that. There were cases of misinformation. And I think we were all shocked to learn about these things, going all the way back to the 1950s. But by and large, if you ran a public media corporation or even a private media corporation, you acknowledge that you had a responsibility to report and tell the truth. Was it always the truth? No, but it was a lot better than it was after the social media came out. Now we're all our own newspaper. We're all our own TV show.
Okay, so Mike posted this, said this right now, and I think maybe, do you think the news should be trying to report the truth? Because he's asking who decides what the truth is. Do you think the news should be trying to report the truth, or do you think the news should just be reporting the facts?
Right.
Because there's a difference.
Well, facts are inherently true, right?
But again, you can say these are the facts, and then you say, well, those facts support my truth or this truth.
Right. The interpretation.
Should the news be interpreting the facts?
No, I think they should report the facts, and then it's up to us as educated thinkers to discern for ourselves what the facts are based on the data, or what the truth is based on the facts. I'm sorry. But right now you turn on a lot of news channels, and this happens on both the right and the left. Certain news organizations, it's all editorial. It's all opinion.
That's why I don't have the news in my house, and neither should you. Whoever's watching, not you, Marshall, but I'm just saying, whoever's watching, don't have the news in your house. You don't need
it. We have to teach people to think in school, in high school. We have to teach theory of knowledge, epistemology. We have to teach people how to recognize logical fallacies and how to think for themselves.
And if that's not happening in school, make sure you're doing that with your kids. I did that with my two boys. I'm doing that. My daughter has been homeschooled for 4 years now, almost 5 years now. And I'm making sure I'm going out of my way to make sure she knows how to think. Not just, this. No. Here, take a look at what's going on. Take a look at what you're seeing, and how does that apply, and what can you do?
I think one of the problems is because we don't normally teach this in school. A lot of parents don't know how to think themselves.
Yeah.
And they don't know what a logical fallacy is, even if it hit them, like a Mack truck. So people have to get up off the couch though, and they have to learn it for themselves. And in the day of the internet, where there is an upside to all of this, which is that there's all kinds of information courses that you can take online that are absolutely free to take.
There's so much
good stuff out there. You can educate yourself. You can just do a Wikipedia search and it will tell you. You can say list all the logical fallacies, and there will be hundreds of them. And even if you just learn the top 10, even the top 5, whatever they may be, hasty generalization, no true Scotsman, moving the goalposts, things like that. If you just learn those basic few handful of fallacies, you'll begin to spot others.
Most commonly used,
Yeah, you'll recognize at a minimum, hey, that's probably not right. I can't put my hand on it. I can't name the fallacy, but I bet you that there's something wrong with that statement.
And most of them, I would say most of them fall under ad hominem and straw man.
Right, yeah. And I think that's a good top 5, the ones that we just rattled off.
Yep.
And so,
Yep.
you know, ad hom, straw man, moving the goalposts, no true Scotsman, and hasty
Hasty.
generalization.
Yeah.
If you learn those five, you're well on your way to becoming a critical thinker, and it may change your outlook on things.
So let's
And
make
yeah,
so let's make a law that says if you're publicly speaking and you have a fallacy, then you're removed, or no?
probably not, but at a minimum, it should be flagged, you know? And that goes to everybody. I don't want my politicians that I like to be lying or to be
You know
spouting
what?
fallacies.
I actually kind of like that idea, because a logical fallacy is an objective standard.
Right.
It's an objective. It's not literally, it's not about your content. It's about how you're saying it. It's an objective standard of, no, when you say this and that, that would actually be I would almost go for that type of a, not fact check, but just a logical fallacy check. Like,
Yeah.
hey, this has a logical fallacy. Look it up.
I like the rule on The Mandalorian, and you're going to know this because you've probably seen it.
Oh, remind me.
Where the kid makes a statement and the Mandalorian says, "Do you know? Do you know that?"
Do you
Do
know
you
that?
remember that scene? I'm probably butchering it, but there's a scene
No.
where the kid makes a claim or a statement, and the Mandalorian asks him, "Is that something you know, or are you speculating?"
Yeah, that's
We
nice.
only speak if we know that what we are saying.
Well, if we're going to talk about Mandalorian, what everybody mostly does is what that guy did. I have spoken. And like, that's the end of the conversation. Like, you can't say,
Right.
the person just goes, I have spoken. Well, this has been United Opposition, and we have spoken. We'll catch you guys next week, every Tuesday at 4:00. Thank you for joining us. Marshall, I know you weren't feeling very well, but thank you for joining in and participating. We'll catch you guys later. God bless.
Bye.
I have spoken.